Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where and when you're watching this broadcast. I'm Thomas Fessler, my friends, and this is Disclosure Tonight. Happy Saturday, December 13th. We are heading towards the end of the year, heading towards Christmas first. Then we've got the new year coming our way. Where's Disclosure gone? Where is it at? Where are we heading to? Well, one of the things we're going to be talking about today is this pesky thing called the National Disclosure Authorization Act, and guess what? Yeah, there's some changes, some small ones, but we're going to be diving into that right after this. Let me go ahead and welcome in our audience. Who the heck do we have out there? Let me take a look and welcome you in. Who's in the chat? We've got Andy W's out there along with Brains. Carl Garrison's here along with D. Henderson. Good to see you, D. We got Eliza Teal, Enoch the Witness, Firefly is around along with Francis Rembley. Good to see you. Francis just popped in. Justin R. is here along with Kane Northrup. My eyes are going out. Make the names a little bit bigger. Kane Northrup and Kelly Broughton, those piercing blue eyes. Good as always to see you, Kelly. Oh, we've got Neil Morgan's here along with Necessary Dialogue. Patrick the Mysterious is here. Mysterious. Interesting. Peter Tremulous is around along with Cyanic Man, Real Mr. X. We've got Roni Deal, Rodney Cox. Sam's in the chat along with the Tankla, Turtlehead, and Yankee 858. How about that? Let's jump into the studio and welcome in our dear friend. Oh, where is that at? Mike, how the hell are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Busy on the weekend as usual, but that's okay. We have, I think, a very interesting show today for the audience that we're going to cover. It's going to be fun. Yeah,
well, happy Saturday. It's just to preface everything, we've been saying it for a while, disclosure is just kind of ramping down and down. Granted, we talked about what we want to see coming out of potentially the plan for disclosure coming out of the House of Representatives and the Senate. But the reality is, Mike, before we jump into our main story here, we've got this little aside talking about the comment that was made by Representative Eric Burlison I believe it came out yesterday on the podcast from Weaponized. Yes, he came out and said the only way we're going to see disclosure, Mike, is either A, someone who comes forward who really has physical evidence, 2, coming from the President of the United States, and 3, coming from a foreign government. You know what's missing out of that, Mike? Congress, the House and the Senate and Congress. He's basically saying there is nothing that they can absolutely do.
No, and it doesn't seem like it. We talked about this since David Grush testified. They got information, they have it under oath, and they never move forward on any of that information over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, Congress is ineffective.
And apparently it's James Comer and Mike Johnson, the head of the Senate and the head of the Oversight Committee, when RO asks, should we give him access to the information? The resounding answer going to the UAP caucus / the Task Force for the Declassification of National Secrets, the answer was no. But before we jump any further, we've got Ed in the back with their hand up. What say you, Ed?
Well, Thomas, I really think I need to address one additional issue, and that is what happens if the NHI decide they don't want us to know. You know, I've said before, we won't get full disclosure until the NHI wants to give us disclosure.
Yeah, potentially. They're around us every single day. We just can't see what's going on. So I guess if they don't want disclosure, maybe it also comes down to them upping their game, hiding themselves from us.
Well, I think that may be the case. That may be the case that they'll let a little bit out and they'll tease us and everything. But when it really comes down to full disclosure, where everybody isn't agreeing that there is something there, that will be NHI basically saying, we're going to let you know now.
Yeah. Well, that depends. How many different factions of NHI do we have on this planet? 1, 2, or more? If you have one, that means there's a dang good chance you've got more than one.
Well, that's true. I guess we just got to wait and see how that thing sorts out. But as we keep looking toward these points at which we're going to cross paths, I read an interesting saying today. It says, history will open the book one page at a time. It's just we get no choice when we get to the last page. And, you know, that's kind of been my big thing is when is that last page going to turn? That last page going to flip?
That's a great question, Mike.
Yeah. No, I agree. It is a good point. Well, right now, with things being as slow as they are, We'd be happy for any page right about now, or the next one at the very least, right, Thomas?
Yeah. I mean, all they have to do, Mike, is turn off their cloaking technology, and we'll see them.
Yeah.
It's an easy step
true.
from their side, at least.
But from our side, we also have craft and bodies. All we have to do is wheel them out, and the truth will be known.
Yeah, but as we've always talked about, that just opens up a whole different area with the SEC investigations, unfair treatment of one American company over another potentially. You know, get down to the area. Aside from that, what if they've been allowing all the abductions going on for all these years? That is a huge liability. The whole thing, them keeping it quiet for so long, is a liability. But again, we hear time and time again, this is more top secret than the Manhattan Project for the development and the creation of the nuclear bomb.
Right, but that's okay because I believe Lockheed Martin has an army of lawyers on staff. They'll be able to handle it. It'll be tied up in the courts indefinitely. Maybe not. Well,
you know, time will tell in either one way or the other. Now, talking about UAP, UAS, etc., we've got Matt Laszlo this time tracking down none other than Kirsten Gillibrand. Let's go ahead and bring this up. All right. No, not that one. Where are we at? Here we go. Let's get to this clip. We got a clip coming in from Matt Laszlo talking about Gillibrand, who says it's the same thing. Gillibrand admits UAP, UAS, and drone use in the NDAA. It's interchangeable. Interesting. Let's hear what she has to say.
The whole NDAA this year, there's UAS. So unmanned aerial systems.
Yeah, we did a ton on drones.
And there's drones. Well, but last year it was UAP looking kind of at the same problem. Like, has this Congress just moved past the term UAP and just now calling it drones and UAS?
No. The purpose is we've had a bunch of drone incursions on sensitive sites, such as military bases and nuclear sites. And so we need a specific provision that Tom Cotton and I wrote.
But, okay, let me just pause this for a second. How do they know what's come over the military and nuclear sites are drones? Because usually we've had UAP, going back to the 50s, going and doing the same maneuvers over our military bases and nuclear projects, Mike.
No, you're right. That's true. I don't know if I agree with the points that they're making about how unmanned aerial system and a UFO are the same exact thing. I don't think they are. I believe they're different. I think the drones are separate from the UAP or the NHI. We've talked about that as well.
Oh, but we've got to call them drones.
Right.
We have to.
So if they're going to miscategorize a UFO and call it a drone, they can do that. But an actual drone is not a UFO, is my point. So you call one a UFO, it should be anomalous. You call something a UAS or a drone, it's prosaic in nature.
But isn't that what Susan wants? She wants everybody confused. So they're calling one thing another and it's all interchangeable?
Yes. That's how they confuse everybody and drag the secret from coming out decade after decade. It's an old tactic that they've been using.
Yeah.
Pretty tired of it, though.
I think we're all tired of it, Mike, but it's kind of where we're stuck at. If we can, Andy W., you have your hand up next, my friend.
Yeah, it's just rehashing these acronyms and these different names. I think it's all of us who are in this show tonight, us in the back and everybody in chat. We're kind of used to this usage of language around these objects. But I think it hits again mainly for sort of the general public. These people who are either in the areas that are being affected by these objects, whether they be prosaic drones or other. So I think a lot of it is to keep your average person confused and we've all talked about their attention span being less than a goldfish. So I think the more they keep on about it being drones, the less people are interested. They tend to zone out. It's for us diehards and us, us so-called tinfoil hat wearing crazies to keep on pushing this and trying to get it separated. That yes, there are actual drones out there, but there's also the anomalous.
Right.
So,
Just like we have all of the things that have been going over Europe lately, and a lot of people are blaming it on Russia, but they're saying, why would Russia go ahead and put all these drones down there and light them up? Well, Europe. Let me answer this really quick.
And in the US,
they're putting them out there. They're lighting them up because they're instilling fear and terror with the general public.
Right.
Yeah.
They're also violating national security.
Oh yeah.
So they should light them up. You and I talked about that already. They need to light them up if they don't belong there. The drones.
Yeah.
Then
I wish we had that policy here in the U.S. Shoot them
if
down.
you're working, if they're working, doing something clandestine like the Russians, that if there are Russian drones over Europe, yes, they're gonna light them up. But if they're wanting to work clandestinely, you aren't gonna have these things illuminated. Same in America. It's why are they actually putting these things up?
So
if it's prosaic drones. If it's prosaic drones in the US, they want people to be A, confused, and B, possibly frightened.
So if it's not part of the propulsion system, if other lights and flashing things are turned on, there's a dang good chance, and they're not moving in ways that would point them out as being non-human intelligence, there's a dang good chance it's from us. But if they're making different maneuvers, coming in, doing different behaviors that go along with it, that gives us to a higher chance that we're looking at something that's non-human intelligence.
Right. But Thomas, if you remember, even if it's prosaic and it's ours, if it's blocking international airports like the drone flap did here in New York City, and it's interfering with emergency medical transport, shoot it the fuck down.
Yeah.
Just plain and simple. We've talked about that.
Yeah, it is. You know what? I'm gonna go back on my final answer last time. The drone flap we had in the United States back a year ago, starting November 16th of 2024. I'm going to go ahead one more time and say what we're dealing with was our own technology, trying to find something that accidentally got its way onto the shores of the United States. And there was a all-hands effort to try and track down whatever got lost.
Yeah, no, that's true. But Sharky Marky has his hand up. Go ahead, Sharky Marky.
I'm not familiar with the evidence that it could be non-Russian drones. Maybe you could fill me in on that real briefly, but I've seen way more evidence that it's really Russian. I mean, I believe there's intelligence out there that Russia's preparing for World War III and an attack, but I'm not familiar so much with any sort of other evidence there.
There was a report that came out earlier this week. I'm not sure if I bookmarked it or not, but it was a report by investigators who went and tracked. There were several Russian freighters that were moving through the waters, and their positions directly aligned with the drones that were being seen over Denmark and the different parts going throughout Europe. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. Now, if it was going on and there were things going and it wasn't is a non-human intelligence, damn good chance we're going to be seeing that worldwide, not just relegated to an area where there's a threat going between Putin and the rest of Europe. If we can, George, you have your hand up, my friend.
George, your mute button is on. There we go, mate.
Wow. All right. Cheers, Governor. Yeah, I've had information recently from Holland that they've had a 3-day warning to stock up on supplies, money, and food. In the UK, news-wise, on the mainstream media, we've just had we're on a war footing. We haven't been told yet to stock up on food.
Well, there was actually a statement that came from the EU, that board of unelected officials who likes to put down tyranny against the people. Yeah, they came out and said, we are heading towards World War III. Prepare for it.
Yeah, and I think the NATO secretary, who was also president of the Netherlands at some point, although I think he's a businessman as well, the NATO secretary said that expect to fight a war that your grandparents did.
Yeah, exactly.
That's some major shit, right?
Now, not to say there haven't been sightings of UFOs in the Netherlands in the past. There have been giant triangle UFOs that have been seen. More importantly, hovering over the U.S. military bases where we house our nuclear weapons.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of weeks back, I had a chat with you, and I still kind of agree with Mike, Disclosure Mike. Shoot them out of the sky. But you guys were resolute. These were Russians, and it sounds like you're kind of like going, well, it could be UAP as well. UAP has been over France, over all their nuclear sites going back to the 60s, if not before that. So there's been a regular pulse beat of sightings of actual UAP across Europe going. What we're seeing now is an increase that's going on that more points towards not the behavior of what they've seen over their nuclear sites in the past, but it's a new type of behavior that more aligns with prosaic human advanced military technology, not necessarily that of a non-human intelligence that's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years more advanced than we are. So moving the conversation forward, we're more in that corporate realm of kind of like corporate technology coming out to play amongst the other government players. Is that what we're looking at? No.
We're looking at government players going out there, bringing out their toys and using it as a terror campaign against the people of Europe.
Do you think that the corporations wouldn't bring their toys out to influence, almost like lobbying?
No, hell no.
They don't have anything to gain by doing that.
No,
they are not a government. They are a private company.
Well, they would have something to gain, Mike, if it was their technology that was being schlepped for them to go ahead and use it to take down the stuff. So there's always, a Lex Luthor out there somewhere.
Could be. I don't know. Hey, Mr. Luthor. I think basically corporations influence Parliament and influence government by their massive cash power. So I think by all rights, looking at government debt, the USA as a general, like totality, is less powerful than Apple Incorporated, considering their profit margin. So if you look at total debt versus profit, really, Apple should be running the USA as a corporation.
Oh my God!
It's a scary amount of cash. It is a really scary amount of cash.
Well, don't forget we've got NVIDIA too, who's got a scary amount of cash, and we have Microsoft, who has a very scary amount of cash. And the person who we have to worry about coming out of Microsoft is Bill Gates. That is the evil Lex Luthor we're dealing with.
Billy No Mates himself. Didn't he? He was he's a philanthropist, so he likes spending the money.
He's a philanthropist, but you got to remember all of the spending that's been done for going ahead and giving vaccines around the world was not his money. It was his foundation, but he's been spending United States taxpayer funds to go through his NGO, non-governmental organization, to go and do all this stuff. So we see him as a philanthropist. We all think Bill Gates is spending all of his money. No, he wasn't spending his money. He was spending our money.
Right. Yeah. The double switch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think also, wasn't he buying up a lot of farmland of America?
Yes, he is. He's one of the persons who has been buying up a majority of the farmland.
And let's not forget, he was spending a lot of time on Epstein Island, which led to his divorce with Melinda.
Oh, yeah.
She's not happy.
No, not at all.
Do you reckon she'll come forwards as a witness at some point? Maybe?
No, not at all. She's the world's wealthiest woman divorcee.
Yeah.
There's no way she's going to screw anything up.
And Mike, I would guarantee there is an ironclad NDA that she signed off through the divorce, just like I did with my ex.
1,000 years.
Yeah.
And hers might be punishable by death.
That's it.
Someone else has their hands up.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Jay, go ahead.
That reminds me of a television series that came out in the 2000s that was called The Travelers, and they went back in time to stop the corporations that took over the world from from continuing. Like they went back to stop the corporations from taking over the world and running the world. That sounds like what we're dealing with here. Like what George is saying, like the capitalists and everything, like in the government, owe more money than all these other corporations, but they're the ones that are getting the technology and reversing it because we're giving it to them. It's
Yeah.
You do understand, Jay, that like every local and state and federal government is in actuality, it gets its power from being incorporated.
Oh, I know. I understand
so
that. Yeah.
The entire country is basically a corporation and is run by corporations.
100%. And it has to change, or we're going to get stuck in the past.
Come on, Eisenhower, in his speech that he gave when he was leaving office, warned the American people of the power of the military
industrial
complex. Exactly.
Yeah, he was the president, and it never stuck with anybody. So we see how far that went.
Yeah, people can put as many warnings out there about it, but you know what? It's going to potentially happen. But yeah, it does seem, Jay, we are dealing with a lot more unelected officials, especially in Europe, coming from the general population electing them, who are setting policy and procedure and everything else that's screwing up their own countries. You just got to wonder, where in the hell are they getting this from? It's got to be coming from somewhere.
I believe a congressman came out one time and said that, we don't even have the power most of the time because the aides go back in the back and talk with somebody, and the aide comes back in front, and we have to do, what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Gene says, then who will the rich have to fight for them once they need to come out of the bunkers? Good point that even Whistling Mike agrees with.
Yeah. That is a good point, Gene.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we fundamentally give them, they're all going into bunkers and they're all doing this and that and da 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 da. Well, at some point they got to come out. And so the premise is, well, they're all going into bunkers because society's ending, collapsing, falling apart.
No, they're doing it for the ECDO, the decoupling of the crust from the surface, giving basically global catastrophe where you're wiping out 98% of the population and life on the planet. So when they come out of their bunkers, there's not going to be much of anything left.
Not gonna be, yeah, their dollars aren't going to do them any good then anyway. So I don't know what they're hoping for.
Exactly. I think Michael has his hand up in the back.
Yeah, Michael does, yeah.
Yeah, if World War III starts, it won't last long. You guys know that. And World War IV will begin. And World War IV will last a hell of a long time, decades. And their money isn't going to be worth anything. And you'll be lucky if you find any food.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think that will happen, but if it does, Lord save us. It
depends. We could already say World War III has already started on the battlefront in Ukraine, because Russia already has brought in other countries. They brought in soldiers from Korea, from other countries that are part of the Republic. They've got technology coming in from China, so there's a multi-front funding one side, and on the Russian side, then you've got the opposite side funding the Ukraine side. So yeah, the battle's kind of started. Hopefully it just doesn't start spilling over.
It's like at the end of World War, when they signed the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, they actually started World War II automatically. So, and when at the end of World War II, this separate, because Russia is a communist country, right off the bat, the United States is thinking they should just continue the war, and that was the start of World War III. So it's been there are fuses that in politics and geopolitics that have been.
I would say Europe is more responsible for what's going on over in Ukraine than the United States is, Michael. 100%.
All these little wars, all these trade deals and whatnot, they're all fuses towards a world conflict.
Well, we've got that. And then we have totalitarianism taking over Canada, taking over Europe and other countries around the world.
Well, totalitarianism hasn't taken over Canada.
Well,
yet.
you're getting there with where they're pushing for taking free speech and everything, with Carney in place and everything. It's
it's not. Well, let me tell you something. Any world leader will never have total control over their nation.
Yeah,
they just don't. There's the bureaucracy is powerful. The banks are powerful. The corporations are powerful. The people, if they get together, are powerful. You have all these powers that are in conflict with each other. So there isn't. Nations have risen and fallen quicker than you and I could ever write a book about it. But
oh yeah, well, let's just say free speech is under attack. In a large
attack in America, it's under attack.
Oh, in America, not even close to Canada, not even close to Europe or the UK for that matter.
Do you remember the guy? His name was Kachoshi. He was a writer for the Washington Post.
Yeah,
that was murdered.
And he was murdered. I mean,
by the Prince of Saudi Arabia.
If that isn't an attack on American free speech.
No, that's one little person. What we're talking about is right now the country that has imprisoned the most people in the world, including Russia, North Korea, China, everywhere else, for exercising free speech by 2 to 3 times over is the United Kingdom right now, not the United States.
No, the United States have just incarcerated more people per capita.
No, we're talking about free speech. We're not talking about runaway crime that's going in a lot of our cities, and they've looked the other way for a long time. Yeah, we incarcerate people because there's a problem with crime.
So you have recently had, was it 5 or 4 ex-Navy intelligence officers telling their troops that they're obligated not to carry out illegal
right,
orders.
and they will be court-martialed because when you're in the Army, doesn't matter what country you're in, you're no longer a free citizen. You are under a contract with the military, which has specific rules that you must adhere by. And if you don't adhere by those rules, you can be locked up and thrown in prison. So, yeah, there may be people who have been in the military or are in the military and have been saying stupid things. They'll be taken care of accordingly.
It's not stupid things. That's the legal.
Okay, here's the thing, Michael. They don't have free speech. When you are in the military, you sign it all the way. Gene, you want to go ahead? I'm sure you may be able to answer this one.
No, exactly. I mean, it's called the when you go into the military, right? You do not give up your constitutional rights. However, you lean them over a bit. And what takes priority is the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And when you are in uniform, so you are welcome to participate in political speech, but you cannot do it in uniform. You cannot do it, and you cannot make statements in uniform that run counter to the principles of good order and discipline. Then it becomes that becomes sedition. And when you are anybody in the military who is encouraging some and they will tell you, and if you've been in situations, the difference between a lawful and an unlawful order, and the process, if you believe an order is unlawful, to go through. But any person at any rank, anywhere in the military, that explicitly tells somebody, do not follow the orders of the officers appointed over you, or in the case of other officers, following the orders of the President of the United States, it is a black and white case of sedition. Period.
Yeah. And as someone else brought up, it's the Uniform Code of Justice.
Right. UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice. So it is those laws which are unique to being in the military and serving in the military. And there are even people who have left the military, been discharged, but crimes are discovered after they've left the military, and they can still be prosecuted and brought back, forced back into active duty to serve in military prisons.
Right. Absolutely.
And those 4 people were not in uniform.
They are still officers. When you are an officer of the United States Armed Forces, you are commissioned by the President of the United States.
But they didn't say
That's the difference between a
That's
commissioned and a non-commissioned officer. I was a non-commissioned officer, as the sergeant ranks. When you are commissioned, when you are a warrant officer, you receive what's called a warrant from the Secretary of Defense. That that is your job. That inherently, to be in that position and to explicitly tell people do not follow those orders is sedition.
Yeah,
and
but
you are
they
an
didn't
officer
say that. They said
24/7.
don't follow. They said not to follow illegal orders.
Well, that goes without you're
But claiming the orders coming from the President of the United States that they've already vetted and saying they're illegal is going against your boss, and you can't do that.
Right. Of course you don't,
That's can say whether it's legal or illegal.
No, that's disingenuous, Mike, because the intent was to just say don't follow any orders by the president, or imply that any orders that the president gives are inherently illegal. It goes without saying you do not follow illegal orders, right? It goes without saying. The wording, the purpose behind it, and the intent was just seditious.
That's why Mark Kelly is in trouble.
Right. So you don't try to artfully craft wording in order to, make it fit some sort of political narrative to make it fit that you think and you want it to be, because it's not. And this is the problem with the entire conversation. They twist words, people twist words, and they twist intent in order to make it something that they desperately, desperately want it to be, and it's simply not. And in carrying it out, you continue to create a delusion for yourself and misinform other people.
Okay, so Marjorie Taylor Greene made some statements, and
You keep on getting down one little person over here, 4 people over there. How many people in the United States are talking about a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of statements that are being made? We're talking in the United Kingdom, we're talking over 12,500 people are now in prison because they've exercised their free speech on social media platforms. That's a huge difference.
well, you're entitled to your point of view. So
Yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, those are elected, representatives. All of those things, are different than people who are actively serving and getting their paycheck under the Department of Defense and are actively serving under
which
commission.
one of those 4 people are working for the Department of National Defense?
They can. Are they in the Navy?
No, Mark Kelly is a representative.
He is a former officer.
Former officer, yeah.
Right, but he's a former officer of the military who is still under the auspice because of the position he held that he can still be called back at any time. So even though he is out of the military, he's still under the scope of the contract that he signed when he joined the military in the first place. There's certain things that kind of tag along like hitchhikers, whether you like it or not.
Even as a retired member, it's difference between being retired and resigning your commission when you're, when you're an officer. Even when you sign your 4-year contract as an enlisted person, let's say,
You have an 8-year obligation. So you can honorably do your 4 years, leave and get out. And after that, for the next 4 years, you are still subject to being called back at any time. So there's a lot of, nuance and things like that, because they'll, especially they're still getting retirement pay,
right,
and all of that as well.
But aren't there 2 charters in the United Kingdom, in Canada, called Charter 1, which allows the government to justify reasonable limits in a free and democratic society, and Charter 2B, which protects, quote, freedom of thought, belief, and opinion expression, and both of those are under attack right now?
Seems like it to me, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, welcome back, Mike.
Thank you. Technical difficulties. I'm driving. I lost the signal.
Oh, not a problem. We've been having a little bit of thing. We got distracted covering Kirsten Gillibrand, but it's been a great conversation.
Oh, it's always fun talking about Gillibrand. Yeah.
All right. So Jay Albertson and George Metcalf are next. So you have your hands up, Jay, and then George.
Yeah, I have to echo what Gene said. When you are, all right, you're over in Germany. My first duty station was Germany, and you're subject to UCMJ, just like Uniform Code of Military Justice. If you get out, just like he said, you serve your initial term, yes, but you still sign that document saying that they are allowed to call you back 4 years after you're already out. It's the difference between, the laws that they can, use and not use. But also, on top of that, when you're in the military, you're specifically given like lawful classes to differentiate, a lawful order from a not lawful order. So them coming out and saying, don't follow these orders, well, there has to be something behind them saying it, because of the fact that we are already given that class when you go in the military. Yeah. Everybody gets that class. It's a legal UCMJ class saying that you're subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice over local laws. And then the local laws will apply after that.
But don't forget, Jay, as well, the representatives from the House who made those statements encouraging those members to go ahead and basically commit sedition are also punishable by death under the United States Constitution and federal law. You can't encourage members of the military to be seditious towards the administration. It's just, there's a reason that there's laws that do that.
I just think everybody needs to watch. I just think that everybody just needs to watch the words that are coming out and why they are coming out, and research it a little bit. Like Gene said, like I said, if you look at any soldier that goes in fresh off boot camp, they all get the same training in UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice. We all get the same training. You know what a lawful order is versus an unlawful. And if you feel that an order is unlawful, you can go down to the JAG office, which is it's the Justice, the JAG office is the Justice Office for the military. You can go down there. Go ahead, Gene.
Judge Advocate General.
There you go, the Judge Advocate General. If I felt like my commander gave me an unlawful order, I myself will go down to the legal office and say, hey, this is the order I was given. Is it legal or not? And they say yes or no, and I either follow it or don't, and they give me advice on what to do. You don't go straight out and say, oh, sir, I'm not going to follow your order at all because I think it's illegal. That's wrong. I have to get advice from legal to see if that law or that order is illegal.
And I'll just take it, not to drag this on too long, but for a practical example, right? I face those situations where I said to somebody, I am giving you a lawful order now as an NCO. I'm giving you a lawful order to do X, Y, Z. Are you refusing to obey the lawful order? And they say, yes, I am. Okay. Then I place them under arrest, right? And we go through the process. And then it goes before the Judge Advocate General as to whether or not the order was lawful.
Yes, exactly. Like that's exactly what I was saying. And we all get taught that during basic training, during boot camp and everything. So them coming out and saying, don't follow unlawful orders. Why would they come out with that? Because we all get it. Everybody knows this. So there has to be a reason behind their coming out with it, which is what exactly is happening, what Thomas is saying, what Gene is saying. There's a reason behind the madness. You just have to do a little bit of research on your own to find out.
So if sedition involves actions or speech that incite rebellion against the authority of the government in the United States, it is treated as a serious federal crime. Civilian penalties, if found guilty, can face fines and up to 20 years in prison. Military personnel, especially active duty personnel, military members may face a death penalty or other punishments as determined by a court martial. It's not something to play around with.
No, it's not. I had to deal with a similar situation in Iraq with UCMJ, which, no fault of my own. I was given a legal order. I followed it, went through UCMJ process like normal, and it wound up perfectly fine. That's the way it's supposed to happen. You yourself were the judge of that order as a soldier, and then you determine whether or not it is lawful in your own sense. But then you're like, okay, it's lawful or it's unlawful. Am I gonna do this or not? And then you have to go to UCMJ. You have to do that step. If you do that step, you're not going to get in trouble because they tell you if it's legal or not.
Yeah.
And just a reminder, guys, all these laws came from World War II.
Or earlier.
But there's a very good reason.
Intervention, and possibly even World War I. Yes, you're right.
Yes. But there's still laws. They were never taken off the books.
There's a very good reason why they were put into place, though. Okay, I'll give you an example. There was a soldier down in Iraq that pulled the pin of his NCO's grenade inside of a tent, and he got a bunch of soldiers, really seriously injured. He had a psychotic break. That guy was UCMJ on the spot, but he had a psychotic break. UCMJ is what all military follows. With anything we do, it happens to, you have someone there with you no matter what you're doing. If you're in combat, if you're doing something, if you're going on a mission, you always have that legal person that you could turn to and say, should I follow this or should I not? And I've had that all my life, down when we were deployed and everything. They're always there for you,
Well, I'll go one better, Jay. The UCMJ is different than most civil law. For instance, if you're in the military and you have an affair and you're married, it's considered adultery. That is punishable under the UCMJ and not civil law. So there are differences that are key once you're in the military.
Yes, 100%, Mike. And there's also one other difference is when you're in the military law will come first over the civilian law. So they'll try you at the military level and then you'll serve that. But then you go to civilian and they might tend to try you as well for that same crime or different crimes of that.
Yeah, but if you are court-martialed and you are putting time in Leavenworth, let's say, the civil law enforcement or the district attorney is probably not going to pick that case back up again years down the road.
No. Most likely not. We had a case over in Germany the same way. We had a guy got stupid at a bar, started a fight, and he got UCMJ, but he had to also serve his time in a German prison for that fight because it was a German law. But the UCMJ came first, military acted, they put him in prison, but then Germany said, no, you're going to do it with our laws too now. So it's a double whammy sometimes when you're in another country. But to end this, conversation, I guess.
There we go. Get back to disclosure.
Back to the show. The basis for all this was, what they come out with was not what I would have done at all. because everyone knows that every soldier is trained in UCMJ when they enter the military. So there's no reason for that to come out.
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
all I have to say.
We got a lot of hands up.
We
back
got
here,
Tom
so
Whitmore
thanks for that, Jay.
next. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I thought I'd heard Hegseth complain earlier that he felt that he and a lot of other people in the military felt that the rules of engagement were too restrictive in Iraq and Iran. I'm sorry, Iraq and Afghanistan. And I don't know if ordinarily I would think if they're going to engage in some operation like attacking a boat in the Caribbean, that it seems like the normal procedure would be to run it across legal before they do anything. You know, the lawyers in the Pentagon, the JAG. And I don't know if they did that and the lawyers said, no, that's illegal, you shouldn't do it, and they just ignored them. I'm just saying that's a possibility. Another thing is,
we know they
I
weren't
don't know
fishing,
what the
but
real
we know they weren't fishing boats, though. That's a fact.
I don't know what the difference is between blowing up a fishing boat that they think is carrying drugs and blowing up people at a wedding in Afghanistan.
But it wasn't a fishing boat. It was a drug runner boat with 4 engines on the back, a long cigar boat, and it wasn't have nets or fishermen or fishing poles at all that they've taken out.
I didn't say it was a fishing boat.
Okay.
Or if I did, I said that in error.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know what the difference is between that and shooting up a wedding, blowing up a wedding and killing people that aren't actually even combatants.
Right, because there's a target there who's involved with it that they want to take out.
I understand that, but I don't understand. What I'm saying is, I think the Democrats are trying to make an issue out of something and making a distinction without a difference.
But isn't that what they usually do?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The last person with their hand up. Let's get to it. Not that one. Who's next? Ed Brown. Go ahead, Ed, and then George. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, Thomas, I just wanted to point out, I think we kind of got off the subject a little bit from where we started, which was the original ad that was trying to get the people to say, don't follow unlawful orders. Here's where I think that was a serious problem. I'm kind of recapping back to that point. Is the average enlistee guy, 18, 19, 17, maybe 20, somewhere in there, hasn't got the smarts to figure out whether he's as smart as the president of the United States or not. So, they get an order and it comes down through channels and everything. And he's not going to be able to say, well, that's an illegal order, so I'm going to be safe not following it. The problem is this, as I think Gene kind of pointed this out too, or may have been Jay, I don't know. Majority of these orders are all legal. 99% of them are legal. So you're looking at the one case where it's not. But what we're worried about is, what about the 99% of the cases where they should have taken action, but they said, oh, my senator told me I don't have to do it if I don't want to. They're letting the soldier or the airman or whatever make that determination. And that determination should not be made by them individually.
It shouldn't be even encouraged by them to go against it, saying, you're going to take responsibility for this. You do your own things, but this is what we say. And that's actually encouraging them.
Yeah, and I think that's going to cause people to do that. Now, there's a lot of discussion of, is it seditious? Here's where I think it could be absolutely seditious. Let's say during that commercial, one of those senators, I'm not going to drop names, says, you don't have to follow illegal orders. Okay, so a bunch of people decide not to do it, and we lose Americans because of it in a combat. Okay, that is complicity on the part of that senator, in my opinion, basically aiding and siding with the enemy at the destruction of these people.
Isn't that what the Democrats do, though?
I'm trying to be nice, Thomas.
I know. I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate here. So, thank you.
And the oaths that everybody takes, enlisted people take the oath to follow the orders of the officers appointed over them. The officers' commission includes taking the oaths of the Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States. Nowhere in that is taking orders from any member of Congress.
And I'll give one better also on that. That real quick, all you need to do is just think about it, okay? If a soldier sits there, if I'm told by Gene tells me hypothetically, hey, there's a village over there, there's people over there, I think they're shooting at us, but I don't know. Jason, open fire. And I do. Okay, I followed his order. It might be illegal, but I followed it. Even if I follow it, okay, even if I follow it, it has to go through the UCMJ process. We all go to UCMJ, then afterwards they say, oh, well, it wasn't you, Jay. You followed the order that was given to you by Gene. Then they look at Gene and say, Gene, what happened? You know, it's a process that happens, but it's not something that one individual soldier should make that decision on his own, saying, I'm not going to follow this, because that raises a bunch of questions on all these other soldiers, should they follow orders. And you don't want that in the military. You want them to look up to their NCO and say, I need to follow this order, even if it's wrong, or maybe it might be wrong. At the end, UCMJ will take care of it.
Yeah. I got to bring this up really quick, getting back to disclosure on this. We got Shermanator Osborne. Love you, Sherman. Thank you for coming here today. But great topic. I'm going to make an example on some of the things you've been bringing up, because it kind of shows where we shouldn't be. Republicans have enabled the UFO cover-up from the start. Next, Republicans have conveniently have constantly controlled the course of disclosure. No, that's not the case. It's not Republican. It's not Democrat. What we're dealing with is a fourth branch of government, the bureaucrats that are in the executive branch, that are over and above the president, that have controlled disclosure and access to information about the non-human intelligence since the very beginning, since it first started.
Exactly.
So we need to, it's not a Democrat problem. It's not a Republican problem. It's an executive branch problem. And it's not meaning it's a Democrat or Republican executive branch. Those schmucks are there irrespective of who gets elected, and they control what other trickle of information is going to come down to our president. That's the problem.
It's a Susan Goff problem.
Oh, yeah.
Now that describes Susan Goff to a T, Manuel.
Oh, yeah.
She's been there for 16 years, going on 17, through 4 different administrations on both sides of the aisle, and she still has her job.
Oh, and she's still watching him, Mike, closely.
Oh, God, no, please don't.
She can't. There's no way that they can remove her.
They don't want to. She's doing a good job.
Right.
In their eyes, she's doing exactly what the leadership wants her to do. She's not acting on her own.
Part of the deep state, right?
Well, she's a puppet of the deep state. Fist puppet.
Oh, okay.
There you go. She's a puppet of the deep state. No more different than you've got other individuals like John Kozlowski or Sean Kirkpatrick or Tim, the guys who all ran AARO in the past, right? They're all puppets for the deep state, and they're just taking the commands from their leadership and saying, yes, sir, we will do exactly what you're asking for and deliver for it.
It's the unelected officials we have to look out for, because if you look at the president, right, he's only there for a certain amount of years, and these people are there forever in these programs. So they look at the president and like, well, he's not really acting on our behalf, so we're not going to tell him so much. But the next president, we might let him know a little bit more because he's on our side.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's where even Avril Haines, who was the director of national intelligence during the Biden administration, she was completely shut down in her wanting to get rid of the overclassification that was going out through the intelligence community that she literally oversees as a director of national intelligence, because they viewed her as a short-term employee. You're here today, gone tomorrow. We don't have to listen to you, is exactly how it was described to us.
All think about these people is they're all short-term employees, so why would they have to deal with them? They just wait them out until somebody else comes in that they can deal with.
Right. And they just shut down the conversation 100%. All right. Do we have everything? I think we got, George, you get the last hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to interject the phrase lawfare. We have warfare. We know how to fight different asymmetric wars and so forth, but lawfare, the art of using law to be on your side, to be able to enact what you're doing legally. I think this is the last domain that the powers that be are worried about. They're not
For
worried
instance,
about-
in the United Kingdom, people who would be protesting what's going on against the commoners of the country could go ahead and dress up in a burqa and not get in trouble for it because they say people who are protesting can't wear masks to hide their identity.
People take advantage of protests and whatever legal aspect they have. But, just to echo, I've taken an oath of allegiance myself, although I'm not a cap badge beret wearer. I didn't march out or anything like that. But I've taken that oath of allegiance, and I think kind of going back to the previous conversation with Gene and Jay, I'm 100% behind you. I think kind of like when you're in that environment, and I've met many people who've come from that environment, that you follow the role that's the oath that you've sworn to your nation state. Coming back to the kind of lawfare aspect and this kind of like compartmentalized situation with UAP and so forth and disclosure, I think disclosure is happening all the time, but we're not maybe aware of it 100%. UK wise, Thomas, I think I go out, I see people like holding their tongue. I'd see people kind of like not being able to express themselves, and it's a bit embarrassing in many ways. Recently I flew to South America. The only stop that I had wasn't in Colombia, it wasn't in Peru, it was in UK. When I came back into the country, I was taken to one side. They wanted to inspect my bags, where I'd been, what was inside, like 1,001 questions. Doesn't bother me myself because, like these individuals I've worked with before. So we ended up talking about shoe wear for the day. Hopefully you and Mike can come on the show. That would be great.
Oh yeah, it'll be fun, my friends. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to you more about your own personal experiences.
Oh yeah,
Mike and Thomas. So
we'll get there. Now, getting back, we're a short point into talking about our first interruption story about Kirsten Gillibrand, Kiki here. Let's see what else she has to say. I'll back up a little bit. Here we go.
Sites such as military bases and nuclear sites, and so we need a specific provision that Tom Cotton and I wrote to give the DoD the authority to take them down.
Is that in there?
It should be in there, yeah. It was agreed to. I haven't seen the language yet, but the House agreed to our provisions.
Classified section?
Part will be unclassified and part will be classified.
Because in the unclassified section, there's no mention of UAP.
But it'll be under UAS.
Yeah.
So I don't think I didn't work on any UAP provisions for this NDAA outside of fully funding AARO.
Yeah.
So hopefully AARO is fully funded.
Well, you worked on UAS provisions.
Yes.
That were
specific. Yes.
But last year they would have been called UAP.
No, they wouldn't have, because UAS is just, we know they're drones. They're not unidentified. So they're unmanned aerial systems.
But the Langley incursion, Warner and Kane, 2 years out.
They have called it a UAP?
Well, no. The Pentagon says they have no idea what they were. They shut down Langley for 17 days.
We could have called them UAP or we could have called them UAS.
Yeah.
I think Cotton probably just wanted to call them UAS.
Yeah.
It was probably a Cotton preference, but
it's cover-up preference.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. Appreciate you, man.
There we go. Kirsten Gillibrand, comfortable with them calling it UAS when it's a UAP. Seems a little confused in that area, but she's definitely looking out for funding AARO to 100%, Mike. Well, we're hearing from the House of Representatives, more specifically, multiple times coming from Senator House Representative Anna Luna, that she wants to defund AARO. Interesting thing, to say the least. I think we may have lost Mike again in his travels out. He's on family time with the family shopping day. Let's go ahead and we get back to this. I know we've got other stuff. Yeah, we got the title thing we're going to talk about next is what the hell changed in the NDAA. Let me go ahead and get this up here. I've got some slides I can bring up, and we're going to go through, have a fun time as we usually do, folks. I appreciate you coming out to this episode of Disclosure tonight. We do try our damnedest to go ahead and give you a decent show, even when there's not a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, we're going to be delving more into the attack on free speech that's going on around the globe, whether that's in the United Kingdom, over in Europe, or even up north in Canada. We're going to cover all the stories, and it's just something a little bit more because free speech and disclosure kind of goes hand in hand. Now, if I can get back to my, where am I at here? I want to get past that. No, I want to get past this one. There's a whole bunch of things. There's one here I wanted to share coming from, well, interesting quote coming from John Ramirez, someone who Mike liked a lot. In the day, it's like, oh my God, John Ramirez. And it's like, Mike, hold on, let me tell you about John. Interesting thing, he's talking that in his personal beliefs that there are residents, visitors, and strangers talking about the non-human intelligence that's on our planet right now. Let's go ahead and play this short clip of Ramirez as we get ready to go ahead and cover the changes in the NDAA. Where is that at? Let me go ahead and get to there. All right, Mike, here we go. You remember John, don't you, Mike?
The person who described that when he was asleep in his bed, an alien came into his bedroom, reached under his covers and grabbed his balls. He jumped out of bed and got into a fist fight with it. I remember that story well. We talked about it, yeah.
Oh, we have. All right. I forgot about it completely, but you haven't. So here we go.
No, I have not.
Phenomenon with a capital P, because that's the way the government kind of lumps it all together. Whether it be like metallic craft, light energy orbs, presence of ETs, in a corporeal sense.
We've got no sound back here, Thomas.
Oh, shit. Sorry about that. All right, sorry about that. I'm in the wrong browser, apparently. Let me get back to Brave, because that's when you guys can hear. All right, and wait, let me go into this one story. I can bring it up really quickly, get it back to you. Let me restart for the audience so you guys can hear in the back. Sorry about that, Andy. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, and
go ahead, Mike.
You were the one telling me that you've never heard of somebody encountering an NHI that got into a fist fight with it.
No, never.
Right.
Never.
So that's how I remembered that.
Well, it's also, I had an initial conversation with John Ramirez right after he came out on Project Unity. And he was introduced to me by Linda Thompson back in the day. And in that conversation, John said that, hey, I've already said everything that I could possibly say or know on Jay Anderson's Project Unity show. I'm going to be going on vacation. When I get back on vacation, hey, reach out to me again, which I forgot to do. And I'll come on your show and we'll walk through the process of what you have to do to go ahead and do a FOIA request. I thought that was a good idea. But after that happened, after he got back from vacation, he was on show after show after show after show. And his story got bigger and bigger and bigger. And what I just don't understand is he had said at that time, Mike, I've already shared everything that I could possibly share. I have nothing else to really say. And how did it become so much? Either he was lying to me or I don't know.
He was trying to evade making a commitment. But I also remember, because we talked about this, he was telling you that he wasn't going to repeat what he had said with Jay Anderson.
Right.
And since he said that already, he was limiting what he was going to actually talk about on the show. And you were at that point, fuck this, because then what do I need to talk to you about?
No, I wasn't like that. I was like, okay, whatever you want to come on, let's go ahead and talk about. He was a new personality coming in. He had some credentials and stuff behind him. Let's go ahead and get through it. But if he wanted to bring something unique to it, he had said, I've already, it's not that he wasn't going to repeat, that he's already said everything that he can say.
Yeah, and he didn't want to go over it again, so he was limiting as far as if he did come on, what he was actually going to talk about. And that's just not right. You don't do that.
So let's play this clip coming out of John Ramirez. Here we go.
And I say the phenomenon with a capital P because that's the way the government kind of lumps it all together. Whether there be
Okay, he says, I'm going to say phenomena with a capital P because that's how the government lumps it together, right? What people don't realize is when you capitalize something with a phenomenon, a capital P, we're talking about it as a legal term. That's why you would capitalize it. He's not saying it, but that's what he means.
Good point.
Because that's the way the government kind of lumps it all together. Whether it be like metallic craft, light energy orbs, presence of ETs in a corporeal sense, higher consciousness, what's being channeled, what's being experienced, it's all labeled under the phenomenon, including, as we learned, the more disturbing aspects of the phenomenon, which appear to be malevolent to human beings. So it's all.
And here's the one thing, Mike, they call being malevolent or being benevolent. The truth of the matter is what you're dealing with here is aliens are what they are. Malevolence, benevolence are part of the human construct, and we can't view them with this because they're so alien to what humans are. They are just what they are. So if we see them as good or bad, that's our interpretation, but they're just doing what they know best.
They do.
Right.
Right. Good point.
Jay, go ahead. I'll be right back.
Yeah, the thing that I would say real quick is that if you look at it from a human point of view and you look at your sidewalk and you're walking down the sidewalk and see ants, they don't really bother you until they get in your house. It's like, so they're here, yes, they see us, but it's like we're not really bothering them that much. And then on the other notion would be the fact that, malevolent is, we don't really know whether they're malevolent or benevolent because we haven't talked to one in person. Like, we haven't seen one. We haven't studied one. Like, yes, probably the government has, but I haven't seen one. Andy hasn't seen one. Gene hasn't seen one. Like, we need to have this conversation out in the open, Like, it could be a mix of both. You're a new species coming to a planet, and there's all these new species there. Oh my God, we have to tag them. We have to get samples because there are new animals for us to study. So it could be a mix of both. So it's not something that I'm willing to stick stake on claim on either way.
Oh, look, some of our heifers out in the field have gotten sick. We got to pull them in and figure out what's going on. But you know what? Maybe we should pull in more of the heifers that are out there so we can figure out what's going on and see if there's something tied to the ones that are getting sick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why Ramirez takes them as malevolent is because, again, one more time, they reached under the covers and grabbed his balls in the middle of the night when he was asleep, and he got into a fist fight with one of them in the hallway. So to him, that was a malevolent act. That's why he considers them to be hostile.
Oh, I would call perverted, not malevolent. But hey, maybe he's got a nice set of balls and they just wanted to investigate it.
I don't know, but it ended up with him getting into a physical fist fight with the entity.
Yeah.
Allegedly, according to him.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Andy, follow up to that one.
Yeah, I said it in chat. It may well have been their way of saying hello. Yeah. But also, I'm going to add to the, whether they're ambivalent or malevolent or whatever, and I've said it before. I have a cat. I came home from work last night to find my cat eating a mouse out in my garden.
Yeah.
He's not evil. He's just a cat.
Bingo.
We treat him as part of our family. We put our humanity onto these animals. They aren't human. He will never be human. He is a cat. He will go out, even though he's not underfed. He's got all the food he'll ever want. He never ever has to go out and hunt another living animal. He will go out and hunt a living animal because he's a cat, and that's potentially if it's. We're trying to put our humanity on whatever these creatures, entities, whatever you want to call them, people even, we will put what we, consider humanity on these things. Now, if they've evolved under a completely different circumstance, what if they are dinosaurs that have evolved somehow? Okay, just putting it out there for everybody. They could retain that dinosaur instinct in their DNA, as we were talking before the show earlier on. Daryl was on about his dog, and
yeah, but you know what, cat guy, dogs are different. Dogs are like humans more than cats are.
Yeah, but Daryl was saying he bought a fountain for his dog. because the wolf in the dog, will drink from their DNA, whatever's in their DNA,
Their instincts,
their instincts remembers that they drank from rivers. It's the same as this. It's the same as a cat.
I had a cat when I was in an apartment. We didn't have to pay for the water, so I would leave the water on really slow, and the cats love drinking the fresh water coming out of the faucet.
It's the same thing.
It is.
I've got a fish tank that's been sat outside. It's gone all skanky. My cat will go and drink out of that skanky rainwater filled, even though he's got perfectly fine, filtered human drinkable water. We always try and put our humanity onto whatever these entities are. Now, if they've evolved under a different climate, which it looks like, they have, they're going to adhere to what their climate is. So, I don't believe them as good or evil. They're just whatever they are.
Yeah.
It's not a specific evil intent or even a good intent. They're doing, if you hear some of the stories that they're, potentially it's their species is on the decline, rather than try and interact with us, because there are people out there, altruistic people, who would gladly donate, as we do. People donate blood, people donate eggs. All they had to do was come and ask, and I'm sure there'd be people who would donate, DNA or whatever for these things.
If Gary Nolan rang up and said, "Hey Thomas, I'd like to get 12 vials or 24 vials of blood from you to go ahead and research to figure out what's happened to you back in the day," I would say, absolutely. Which arm do you want? Let me drink a bunch of water first so we can get it out easily. Yeah.
I had it when I became diabetic. Now, it's nearly 13 years ago, and they were doing a trial to find out why people became diabetic later in life. I actually had a nurse come to my house and take blood samples. I've never found out whether they've researched anything or whatever, but people will do altruistic things. So I don't see what their hang up is with coming and saying, "Oh, we've got this issue with our species. Can anybody help, please?" So
altruistic things like welcoming in 700 new people over the weekend, Andy, just yesterday.
Happy days, eh?
Happy days in the UK.
I'll keep working hard for them.
Exactly. All right, let's continue on with this. Unless I don't think anyone else has their hands up. No, we don't. We actually got it. Let's continue on. Oh, Daryl. Go ahead, Daryl.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask Mike. Mike, with the context of the story with this guy, I just want to complete the picture in my mind for the fight in the hallway. Does he sleep in the nude?
He must. If they're reaching out of the covers and getting his balls, but then again, they have talked about aliens that can move through walls, so maybe it actually had the ability to move through his. Okay, is he a boxers or tidy whities then?
Oh well. I'm going to think in the nude because I think the fight in the hallway with him, with the alien in the nude, would be fun as well.
Yeah, it is, but he was very upset by this encounter that he described. I don't know if he was in the nude or not, but he said it reached a hand under the covers. He was asleep in bed, and it brushed up against his balls, and he immediately came out swinging, got into a fist fight in his house with this alien. So he didn't like whatever was going on there.
That smacks right of like something out of South Park.
Yeah. God damn it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
God.
Exactly.
I've got to see the latest one with Peter Thiel in it. It's a good one, I've heard. If you haven't watched this, doesn't matter if you're left or right. If you like cartoons, you like silliness. Oh my God, this season of South Park is just fucking hilarious.
It's fucking disturbing. I mean, come on.
Hey, Satan.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. They took the Saddam Hussein character and turned him into Donald Trump, who impregnated Satan through his ass. And they're going to have a baby together. Oh my God, it's crazy.
That JD Vance wants to abort.
Yes, boss.
Right.
He's like a cross between JD Vance and Tattoo from Fantasy Island.
Tattoo, the plane.
Say, boss. But we cannot let him know. All right, here we go.
$500 billion they got paid, so yeah, it is funny.
Oh yeah.
Under phenomenal. And the fact that we can discuss this now is a big step forward. Now, as far as what the government doesn't know, I addressed it. This phenomenon that seems to be malevolent or from strangers, I call it. The government, I think, is still grappling with that issue. And I say strangers in the sense that it is my personal belief that there are residents, visitors, and strangers. Residents being, I believe, entities that have been here long before humanity appeared. And
all right, so here we talking. This goes back to what Ed was talking about earlier, that there's different categories of people in the background making noise with the kids and moving. It sounds like you got a burger, but you go ahead and you look at the different categories of the ones that are here. The ones that have been here for a long time. You've got the visitors that are there and who've been coming and visiting and hanging out like a cruise ship. Come and see humanity before it gets destroyed one more time. And then the last one we've got is the baddies who have come here to go up against the goodies, and they could be battling against each other.
In fact, may have had some hand in making us who we are today. Otherwise, we'd still be primates with bonobos, chimpanzees, and gorillas. We're not. We've been elevated. And I believe it is the residents who did this. And I know that's very controversial, but it's a personal belief. That's how.
You know, I don't think it's that too far out, that there have been ones here that have been on this planet longer than humanity. There's other ones that are coming out, hanging out and visiting. And then you got the pirates and the ones who are coming in, like the Chinese, going ahead and overfishing all around the world. Those bad ones are in here at this point. Is that a good example, Mike?
Yeah. Very good example, Thomas. Yeah. I agree completely.
People who want to come in, they're not fishing, but they're over-harvesting. God, and what's been going on lately with the Chinese fishing boats, Mike, is they've been using electricity, and they've been zapping the water where all the schools are. Not only are they getting the big fish, they're getting the small fish, and they are creating dead zones in the ocean right now for their fishing practices. It's crazy.
No, that's going to fuck up the fishing for them. It's going to hurt their food supply.
No, it's going to fuck up the food supply long term. Here we go.
So I don't know why they would do that.
Where
that guy with the video.
Hold on.
But it's a personal belief. That's how I sort it out for myself. And the visitors might actually be from other worlds.
Or other dimensions.
And the strangers, I don't know where they're from, but it seems very frightening to read the accounts of people, documented people who have experienced very disastrous effects, very tragic effects with their health from encountering the disturbing aspects of the phenomenon.
Interesting conversation coming from John Ramirez on this, Mike. Yeah, you know, he talks about the 3 different types, and you know what? Rick has talked about 5 different types before, and I'm sure the people in the back, because I have to step away for a second, you know, what do you think, guys in the back? Jay, hey, Jay, what do you think? Or Gene, do you think there's more than one here? Does it make sense that we could have more than one non-human intelligence faction fighting against each other for what's happening on the planet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, again, the idea that any of the factions each would have a different purpose for which they have an interest in the planet and are pursuing those activities, I think is perfectly within reason. You know, when I listen to this guy as compared to the headline, you know, he's just stating his beliefs. You know, so I don't particularly find anything, you know, any revolutionary evidence that he's presenting. He's just saying, well, this is what I believe. Okay, maybe it's based upon, but he's not saying he knows it necessarily.
No, he's not. It's his opinion, but Gene, you and I both know, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
Yeah,
so
exactly. So I mean, again, great, more information, you know, but I don't think it's adding anything of value to the conversation or to a group, you know, or towards an effort towards disclosure. I mean, and I've been thinking about it all day because, again, you know, just seeing things constantly come across, I ask myself the question, you know, okay, great. So what are we supposed to do with this? you know, how are we supposed to take this revolutionary piece of information that somebody just, you know, shared, or their idea, and take action on it? And, you know, and I think that's what we're missing here in a sense is I don't feel like this is a movement, or, you know, it's advocacy, but it's not activism in any way. You know, how many people besides just posting and tagging, you know, write a letter, put together comprehensive information, you know, do the things that could actually help move the conversation forward, whether it's in Congress or whether it's in the public. It just all seems to sit and circulate within this one ecosystem.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not really a movement at this point because we haven't gotten any movement on this. It's more of an advocacy, right, Gene?
Right. Well, I mean, you know, we've sort of failed to see the things that, you know, would create movement, which is, you know, unified messaging, unified sense of purpose, you know, a body that begins to exercise influence in politics in a way that's beyond, you know, podcasters running around asking questions. You know, and you know, a few individuals in academia or some of the former government people who, you know, try to sit down and do things, you know, like contribute to these acts and whatnot. But again, is the more general public, what are we doing to influence those groups who are acting, you know, in the lobbyist capacity, I guess, if they're even doing that or registered as lobbyists.
Yeah. Really quick, the Scooby-Dooby Gooby. Not only is our solar system unique, it's not, if you want to call it, relegated to one particular arm of the Milky Way galaxy. It's something that moves along at its own rate, and as it's moving along, it's moving up and down through the galactic plane of the overall galaxy, giving us a healthy dose of gravitational effects that throw our planet into bedlam every 6,000 to 12,000 years. Now, if we can, getting into the topic. There you go, Mike. Put that horn to use.
Yes, sir.
All right, getting into it now. The Senate Armed Services Committee has filed its official report on the FY 2026 National Defense Authorization Act with respect to UAP or UFOs. There are two separate sections of primary interest. One section headed the Integrated Sensing Roadmap for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena on pages 273 to 274 states in part. Let's see if I can get this up here. Let's put it here. The committee is also aware that AARO has been investigating a set of sensors focused on airborne UAPs, but as noted in its annual report to Congress, gaps still exist in the sensing of space, maritime space, and the maritime subsurface domains. Additionally, the ability to correlate data from these domains into a single picture for analysis by AARO does not currently exist. Why? It's basic. Wherever they are on the planet, in space, in the air, on the surface, under the oceans, it should be one data set, not multiple. Therefore, the committee directs the director of AARO to develop an integrated sensing roadmap and to provide a briefing to the Senate Armed Services Committee no later than August 1st, 2026. Why in the fuck, Mike, is this just going to the Senate, not going to the Senate and the House?
And why are they pushing it off till next summer, 2026? Why so long? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Government moves slow. You could give it to them, kind of like when they started with the funding of AARO. They were there for a year, and the CFO of the DoD came out and said, "Oh, they're just figuring stuff out. They don't need all their money yet." But such a roadmap should include the following: 1, a framework for sensing needs and gaps for space, like I just said, maritime surface and maritime subsurface domains. 2, an assessment of available sensors for each of those domains, and 3, challenges to developing an integrated picture across those domains. Coming from the data scientist and data and enterprise architect standpoint, I don't see what the challenges are developing an integrated picture across those domains. You have a globe, right? You have events that happen in space, events that happen in the air, events that happen at the surface of the ocean, and stuff that happens underneath it. All of it is all within the sphere of our planet Earth, right?
Yeah. We already have military sensors all around the planet.
Fuck, man. We're talking about two oxymorons, putting military and intelligence in the same phrase. Now, 4, the ability to integrate sympathetic collection of other sensors available during the collection of these events. In other words, we have an event here. This is what's going on. From this event, we have a relation to all these different things in the sky, satellites, planes, observers, whatever it is, that all relate to this, which is, in essence, a basic relational database where that technology was invented for the mass public in the early 90s. And 5, an assessment of resources needed to address any gaps or challenges identified by the roadmap. Yeah, saying, hey, we're missing this, we're missing this, or we're missing this. Mike, don't you think they should already know
Yes. Oh my
what
God.
those gaps are?
For decades now. Of course they should have known. Exactly.
Yeah.
They're playing dumb, and they're wasting taxpayer money and all of our patience and time on dragging their ass with
And
this.
they want to drag it out as long as they can because they don't want the truth to come to the public. Andy, your hand is up.
Yeah, going on about all the sensor systems and everything. Now, there's the sensor systems that are out in the oceans that your government, your Navy, put out to seek Russian submarines. Now, I believe, this is the ones I'm on about, that if everybody's heard about.
You're talking about the VLF, the very low frequency transponders we have around the world that they use for going and detecting different things going in the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah, they one of them, the famous bloop sound that they picked up, that sound that potentially nothing has ever made that kind of sound, and the noise frequency. I believe it was, these sensors were handed over to scientific bodies after the fall of the Iron Curtain. Now, with what's going on now.
I believe the bloop, they were actually going ahead and attributing that to some giant life form that's deep underneath the ocean, not necessarily to a non-human or human source.
Yeah, but could if these craft are potentially traversing the globe underwater at the speeds that they claim they're going at, thousands of knots. I think that the fastest torpedo that anybody has is actually a Russian one. I believe, if my very bad memory serves me correct, it's called the Kinzhal. And I think that could go about 250 miles an hour because it creates an air pocket in front, almost like we're talking about with our friend Gene with the craft that his father-in-law was talking about, putting the warp bubble in around the craft. But I wonder whether these sensors are actually picking up anything.
Thinking. Come on, Star Trek, let's get to it. Yes, there is something called a cavitating nuclear torpedo that Russia has that takes the energy coming out of the back of it, puts it forward to the front of the torpedo, and it can claim to reach at 100 knots. Which they're finding things that are going in excess of the speed of sound, but underwater. So the maximum speed cited as in excess of 200 knots, which is approximately 230 miles per hour. It's explicitly a super cavitating torpedo design where it's taking the propulsion that comes out of the back of it, reorienting and pushing it out to the front of the torpedo, creating a cavity around the torpedo that the torpedo actually goes ahead and moves through.
Yeah, and also as Firefly rightly put, the depths that these things are recorded at, we I think it's literally only a handful of submarines have ever reached the very, it's how many times have things been to the bottom of the deep trenches?
Well, the only people that have really been down to the deep trenches have been the scientists and James Cameron from Hollywood, going ahead checking things out. But that's again where Tim Burchett is pointing to. We have 5 or 6 deep places on the planet where we have alien influence going on.
Yeah, and also, you only have to look by, how dangerous it is for us to go to depth by what happened with the unfortunate souls on the submarine that went down to the Titanic. We aren't evolved to go anywhere near as deep as that. We're air breathing. Our technology is right at the cutting edge of technology going at deep depths. But we hear so many times of these craft being not just in the air, over whatever have you, but at ridiculous depths that we can't achieve.
Also, there's a trench by Puerto Rico where there's been a lot of sightings. The Aguadilla site that's going on. There's these different trenches all around the world where this thing goes on. It's just an interesting place to go ahead and delve into and understand that, again, if you want to get away from the stupid humans that like to throw nuclear poo at each other and blow up the surface of the planet, or more importantly, you want to get away from the cataclysms that happen on like clockwork every 3,000 or 6,000 years, wiping out the surface, the safest place you can be is under the bedrock of the actual ocean floor. The deeper you go, the safer you are.
Yeah, and I just want to sort of bring up a musing of mine, from my perspective here in the UK. We have sightings of UFOs here, but we seem to have a lot less than maybe America. You've got a much bigger landmass, but what you've also
we also have a much bigger military, and we have a much bigger implementation of nuclear resources across our continent than you would have anywhere without Europe.
But yeah, I want to also add what you have, which we don't particularly have around the United Kingdom, even though we're an island nation, we don't actually have a lot of really deep water. You guys, especially off your west coast, you're on the west coast of the States, Thomas. You have very, very, very deep water. We don't have this in the UK. The English Channel, it's 50 meters deep. It
used to be a land bridge at a certain time when the oceans were a bit shorter.
Yeah, and also you've got to go a long way offshore off the United Kingdom's coast to actually reach any kind of depth. So I think that's why you see a much lower, in comparison, amount of UFOs being reported to the UK. I think they're transitory here. They're passing through. They're not living in localities around this island.
Yes, I think you've got a greater chance of the Russians coming and visiting what you have in the United Kingdom than you do the non-human intelligence.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. Trying to find the one that's here somewhere. All right, let's get back to this. Things I've got another clip I want to bring up. Let's get back to it. In other sections headed by All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, future plans. This language appears. The committee commends the AARO for its efforts to provide Congress with analysis of unidentified anomalous phenomena and for its steps to enhance coordination and transparency through the public release of case resolution reports and information papers. My God, frickin', where's it at? We need to bring out the Avi Lube for this one. My God, they are going ahead and jacking themselves off at this point, saying that, oh my God, you've been doing such a great job of bringing out the truth of the public. Fuck what truth? You're a cover-up agency. The committee believes, which committee believes, that this work is crucial to ensuring public trust. The public does not trust AARO at all. Maybe the politicians who are getting paid off by the military deep state, maybe they trust them because of the money that's coming in. Providing analysis and credibility to investigations of UAPs and advancing the Department of Defense's ability to detect, analyze, and respond to anomalous activity across domains. No, they already know how to react. AARO is just a shell operation to go ahead and grab the information from those who shouldn't have it and to shut them up. As AARO concludes its work on the Historical Report Volume 2, it's due soon, my friends. It was actually due on October 31st of this year. Advances the Gremlin sensor suite from research and development into testing and field demonstration. The Gremlin is something they're going to use to go ahead and actually start determining what's going on with these anomalous events that can't be identified. As AARO concludes its work, okay, so the Gremlin sensor suite from research and development into testing and field demonstration, the committee affirms that AARO remains an important focal point of coordination and execution of the department's enduring responsibilities with respect to the UAP inquiry. My God, let's just go ahead and stroke it, make it feel better. Sustained investment and strategic planning are essential to maintaining continuity and mission accomplishment. You know what this reminds me of? Hold on.
What's that?
Hold on. Is when George Bush was on the aircraft carrier outside of Iraq, right? Outside of Iraq. And he said, mission accomplished. We got it done. But we didn't. That was just the start of the war. Mission accomplished is a bullshit ism that's there. And they say mission accomplished. Anytime you hear the government say mission accomplished or people talking about the government, mission accomplished, this is what you need to think. This schmuck coming up and say, look, the war in Iraq is done. What a fucktard.
Exactly.
Let me get back to this.
Exactly
All right.
Yeah.
So we got a link to the entire report. Let's go ahead and bring these files up. We've got the first one here, the first page. We've got that there. Let's get to the second page. Let's look at this integrating sensor roadmap for UAP anomalous phenomena. Yes, it's getting into the details of this, Mike, but the truth of the matter is our government is a cover-up mechanism. It's limiting liability. It's limiting exposure. So whatever information comes forward, they can say, we didn't know about that. But in reality, Mike, you know they did.
Oh, of course they did. They've known about this for decades now. They've been covering it up the entire time. So, yeah them playing dumb isn't going to fly.
Yeah. So if we want to go ahead of the part talking about their AARO future plans, the committee commends AARO for its efforts to provide Congress with analysis of the UAP and its first steps in enhanced coordination, transparency through the public release of case resolution reports and information papers. No, all they've been giving us, Mike, is the stuff they can figure out, and it points to being balloons, other phenomena. The committee believes this work is critical to ensuring public trust. It would be if they would actually give us the facts and all the cases before they went and shut it down. Providing analysis and credibility to investigation of UAPs, which they haven't done. Providing the Department of Defense's ability to detect, analyze, and respond to anomalous activity across all domains. Yes, they've had it there. But Mike, have you seen anything that has increased our ability to actually analyze and detect and respond to these things? I don't think we have.
Not a fucking thing at all. It's all bullshit. That's the problem. And you're right about analyzed. That's what they're doing to us with this
Yes. So as RO concludes its work on the historical work, Volume 2, remember Volume 1 was a piece of shit that came out and just denied everything, and advances its gremlin sensor. That's their technology, Mike. It almost sounds like the technology. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah, I took care of it. I got it.
All right. The gremlin technology, that's their technology they're supposed to have to detect it. You know what the gremlin technology reminds me of? Remember the old Bugs Bunny cartoon from World War II?
Yeah,
and we had the gremlin saying, yeah. The gremlin sensor suite, which can't bring up shit, suite from research and affirms RO remains an important focal point for coordination and execution of the DoD's enduring responsibilities respect to the UAP inquiry. What we're seeing, Mike, is in fact, the actual operationalization of something that was called the AOI MSG. That's when, after we had the UAP task force that actually is the only task force that actually gave us real information about UAP and UFOs that was going on in our skies. John Kirby came out and said, we're not going to give you regular updates. We're not going to give you information. We're just going to go ahead and keep on doing all of our stuff in secrecy. That's exactly what we have today with RO. They continue on that bullshit line, King Bull, and they expect us to eat it like it's an endless buffet at Golden Corral. So sustained investment and strategic planning are essential to maintaining the cover-up, continuity, and mission accomplishment. Hello, George. Therefore, the committee directed the Deputy Secretary of Defense to brief the Congressional Defense Committees not later than March 1st, 2026 on the strategic vision for RO across the future years of defense plan. The briefing shall include 1. Priority. Let me move this up a little bit higher. Zoom up it's a little bit more. Oh, you gotta fucking kid me. Hold on. Sorry about that. Is this the right one?
You know what they failed to disclose? How much of our money are they spending on this shit?
Right.
They didn't seem to mention that, did they?
Therefore, the committee directs the Department of RO to develop an integrated sentencing roadmap to provide a briefing to the Senate Armed Services Committee not later than August 1st, 2026. Such a roadmap should include the following: a framework for sensing needs and gaps for space, maritime, and surface and maritime subsurface domains, an assessment of available sensors for each of these domains, and challenges developing an integrated picture across these domains. Let's move
I
this.
still didn't hear anything about a price.
No. The ability to integrate sympathetic collection of sensors available during the collection of events and an assessment of resources needed to address any gaps or challenges. So they're not telling them, Mike, they need to fill those gaps. They just need to identify them.
Right. So it's the same bullshit all over again. Nothing changes.
Again and again and again. RO is a catch-all disinformation campaign to get information from whistleblowers, bring them in, get them under new dialogues and new NDAs to shut them up, and to go ahead and put out a sanitized piece of information to the general public.
While they are taking our money the entire time. Yep.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah. Transmission's not included.
Yeah, oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah. It's a shit show, Mike. Which show's different, but this is the truth of where Disclosure is going. It's further cover-up coming from the DOD. We're not going to see anything from there. Congress has gone out and said, we're not going to get any truth from them, Mike. We're only going to get the information as it comes along from the president, right? individuals to come forward, maybe from Jeremy Corbell, because we've also heard, what's his name? Not Tim Burchett, but the other guy, go ahead and say that
George Knapp.
No, not George Knapp. Burlison, Eric Burlison, go ahead and say that, the information isn't going to come from us. It's going to come from the president. It's going to come from an individual who breaks non-disclosure completely, brings forward physical evidence, or it's going to come from a foreign government. And I think, Mike, where we're headed, honestly, is that we're going to see China or Russia or some other government bring forward the truth before the United States of America. I hate to say it, but that's where it seems to be going. Oh, we lost Mike. He muted himself. Yeah,
can you hear me? Because
we got you now.
Signal right now.
We got you, my friend.
Good.
Yeah. It's a catch-22 situation. We all want the truth, right? But if they're not going to give us the truth, what are we going to deal with?
The same bullshit over and over again.
Yep. And if you look back in time, as I keep on doing on a daily basis, to what we had from the first UAPTF hearing that happened back in 2020, 2021, back in that time, that was the biggest advance we had going in disclosure. And ever since we had that first hearing, it's been fall back. We're gonna pull back from where we're at. We're gonna go ahead and say this isn't real. This isn't what's going on. That's the problem, Mike. We all thought back in 2021, disclosure was moving forward. Look where we're at. Look at the information. Look what the UAPTF came forward. But even people like Jay Stratton right now, right? Who was the head of the UAPTF, who would want to bring out the truth. Where is he tied behind? Dobser and a book deal.
And Are you kidding me? They all have book deals. Stratton, Lukatsky, all of them have book deals. That seems to be.
So we're not going to get the truth out of themselves and their own testimony. We're going to get it out of book deals, which means those who can do, those who can't teach, and those who can't do or teach write books.
Yeah, very good point. That seems to be the case.
That's where we're stuck. That's where disclosure is stuck, folks. The people who know information, they want to monetize it. They want to write the books. They're going to bring it out for you all to read. They're not in here for the actual public to understand where we're going to head towards. No, they're there to figure out how can we get more book sales out of this? How can we get more video sales out of this? How can we get more people to go ahead and give me money and my publisher so I can pay for the rest of my life? That's where disclosure is and has been. And Mike, I have to say, this is why Lou Elizondo said in the past he wants to burn disclosure down to the ground. But then again, today we heard stuff coming out, at least yesterday, coming from Nusatelli, one of the witnesses that were at the latest hearing that came up. He's saying that some of the founding people who have talking about disclosure, how did he put them, Mike?
Oh, part of the intelligence community, and they are podcasters that are corrupt and putting out the government narrative. So
right. So they've infiltrated the podcaster segment, and they're putting out their dialogue.
Yeah, we've heard this before, though. Nothing new.
No, it's not. Right. It's the same.
It isn't.
It's the same threatening of grift. We see people in the audience saying fireflies, saying UFOs equal grift. Here's the thing, Mike. If there's people in different industries who are involved with stuff, they bring out the information, they put movies out, they call them grifters? No. But do they do that in the ufology segment? Yes, because they want to go ahead and try and take people who are trying to bring out the truth, no matter how they're doing it, and go ahead and throw them into the grifter category, when the reality is I think everybody's a grifter, honestly.
Well, there are some people out there who are only doing it for the money and nothing else.
Yep.
And then there are other people who are doing it not for the money, but are actually trying to work towards disclosure. It depends on what side of the fence you're on. But I understand about why people would be skeptical. Anytime a price tag is attached to something, it makes you suspicious. That's part of how it works.
Yeah, it does. Sounds like you're in great traffic, Mike.
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, I am.
Yeah. Yeah, God, yeah. Welcome to New York, my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, this is not new news coming out of Nucatelli. And we've heard this all before. And it's always the same thing over and over and over again. Nothing new. Nothing of any real interest.
There's things aren't going on.
Attention.
The message isn't moving forward. So what's happening? Those people in the different positions that they're in, they're starting to attack each other, which is like typical what's been going on with disclosure for the longest time, Mike.
Oh, at least on social media. It's like a Jerry Springer episode. A lot of drama.
Oh, that was me on
people revert
Thanksgiving
to.
back many years ago. But yeah, bring out the freaking folding chairs, absolutely hitting on the skinheads. That's where it goes.
Yeah, it becomes like a freak show.
It does.
Because they have no content. I know. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They tear each other apart. And
Oh,
that's it. That's all
they
they do.
They do time and time again. And for some reason, all my super chats have faded away. The last one I've got is Disclosure Tonight is the place to be. I want to thank you, Shelley Montgomery, for the wonderful super chat, and everybody else for what we're doing here today. We work hard to go ahead and bring your truth. And if you had a good time, you've been with us for a long period of time, give us a thumbs up. And more importantly, if you haven't subscribed, give us a subscribe. We appreciate everything that you do. We appreciate you, Mike, and everybody else in the back.
Oh, thank you. It was a hell of a show today.
Oh, God, yeah.
Good conversation. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And as we usually say at the end of every episode of Disclosure Tonight, see if I can find this. Eyes open, no fear, be safe, everybody. But
go back to Party City where you belong.
Absolutely. We'll catch you in the flip side. And everybody, see you soon. Bye-bye.